Okay, so as you can see, we're back in Hanceville. This complete dumpster fire. It's gonna be a long one. This one's 17 minutes. I'm gonna not interrupt any of this. Let this play. I'm gonna 4 or 5 more things up here. Take a trip down memory lane, and then we have an update, if you will, and we'll go from there.
Good afternoon. Some of you already know who I am. My name is Brian Campbell. I've lived in Hanceville 62 years, and I was a victim of this police department. I will preface my remarks by saying, not one day, not 1 minute in my life have I ever been in any kind of trouble. Maybe a speeding ticket. On May the 20th, 2023, I was caring for my wife. Some of you know me. I've known some of you since you were children. I was caring for my wife with Alzheimer's and my disabled daughter. On that day, an incident happened at my residence. Hanceville was dispatched. 2 officers approached my home, and I didn't know why they were there. I inquired why they were there, did not get a response, so I proceeded to close the door to my house. Upon doing so, one of the officers took his foot, jammed it in the door, and forced his way into my home. Asked me to step outside. Upon which time, there were 2. One of them was very professional. I have told him countless times how I was so pleased with the way he behaved. The other one was the officer from hell. He's not currently on this force because during all this, I prevailed in a lawsuit that took over 1 year and $17,000 of my money to defend myself. That officer hit me from behind, of which I can't hardly still walk, with his knee, took me to the ground, and beat me mercifully. My attorneys have the photographs. Coleman Hospital has the records. I was handcuffed and roughed up really bad, placed in a police vehicle. It was May, so it wasn't very hot, was not running, no air conditioning on, but I began to hyperventilate. I'm a 2-time survivor of cancer and a heart patient. While I was in that vehicle, when one of them finally returned to the vehicle, I was in real bad shape. An ambulance was dispatched and the paramedics. Well, the only problem I had was I couldn't breathe. Once I got air, I was fine. I was then taken by the officer who brutally beat me up to Hanceville jail. On the way to the jail, and I was never allowed to explain anything to him. I was never told I was under arrest. I was never told anything till I got on my way, well, actually, till I got here. On the way, that officer said to me, "Men like you are nothing but pieces of human increment." And that's not the words he used. I was married to my wife 52 years. I never touched her, ever. The incident involved, and I was trying to tell them, with her Alzheimer's, she didn't know what she was doing and tried to exit the vehicle while moving. I pulled her back by her hair, and I was so admitted to that. And that constituted, in your officer's opinion, domestic violence. Anyways, and that was all perpetrated by a 911 call where the person hung up. When I got to the jail, my abuse continued. Maybe it's procedure, I don't know. I was handcuffed to a bench right out there for 3 hours. I say this somewhat shamefully, but I'm a cancer survivor and I'm incontinent. And while I was there, I desperately need to go to the bathroom. I've requested from the officer, and the city hall is right down the hall. And I'm handcuffed, was denied. I urinate on myself. Then I was placed in filthy rags, and I'll tell you, I've traveled all around this world, and that's no lie. As a buyer for a major retailer, I've been in every country you can imagine. The facilities in this jail, and I hope they've changed, were filthy. There were feces on the wall, feces on the water fountain, feces all over the floor. Looked like it hadn't been cleaned in 5 years. Have any of you ever went in that jail and looked at it? I don't care if you're a criminal, you deserve better treatment than that. I was denied food and water because on the way to jail I said, why don't you just shoot me and take me out of my misery? I was put on suicide watch. No food, no water, no nothing. A kind lady jailer come up and had seen my record. She said, Mr. Campbell, I'll get you some water and they don't have to know. She said, I looked at your record. You've never been in any kind of trouble. I said, yes, ma'am, when I was younger, I got speeding tickets, but that's the extent of it. Long story short, I finally talked to one of the three chiefs that's no longer here. This gentleman, chief, was a reasonable man, and I finally got to explain my story to him. And he was very empathetic, and I know it was only my word against your two officers. And he said to me, I will make a phone call and see what I can do, because I found out that my stay would be 2 days in jail, 48 hours. And I was charged with 2 felonies, domestic violence and resisting. I was told my bond was $2,000. So they proceeded to put me in that filthy jail. I spent the night in that jail. Next day, the chief did as he said. My magistrate came down. It was a Sunday. I had the money cash on me, $2,000. She said, pay your bond, you can go home. I went to pay my bond, and this may be the procedure. If it is, I've never been in trouble, I don't know. But I was told, we cannot take cash on the weekend. So that told me you can't even trust your own police department with cash. But if you use a credit card, we'll let you go home. Reached in, got my credit card. Oh, but by the way, do you council members know this? It's $200 more if you use your credit card. So I paid. I'm ready to go home. By the way, by this time I was not allowed a phone call. I was never told anything about my charges. I called my son. Some of you know him. He's an upstanding citizen, was once a manager of LP down here. He's now a private contractor. He said, Daddy, they're not going to let you go home. I said, what do you mean they're not going to let me go home? He said, well, they told me that you're going to be transferred to Coleman Regional. I said, why? They have you under a suicide watch. You have to be evaluated. So Sunday evening, and believe me, I'm no harm to anybody, and was certainly no threat to those 2 policemen. Either one of them could have taken me easily. I'm at Coleman Regional. I'm kept overnight. When the doctors saw my beat up body, they asked me, what could have possibly happened? And I told them, the only good thing that came out of that is the nicer of the 2 officers was the one who transported me. On the way to the hospital, I said, young man, tell me how you could possibly think that he could think that I was resisting. His exact words, and I'll never forget them, because my wife and my wife was dying then. He said his perception was that you were resisting. I said, you were there. Long story short, it came time for discovery. I didn't know anything about discovery. Paid 2 attorneys. They said, here's what's going to happen. They got to present their evidence, and you can present your evidence. Well, Kathy, and a lot of you know my wife, Kathy, a better woman than ever was. She was on her deathbed. And I called up my attorney, Johnny Berry, and I said, I'm supposed to be there. He said, Brian, don't worry about it. He said, me and Brandon will be there. You don't have to be there. So I stayed with my wife with hospice. I wasn't there. In the meantime, my wife died. A month and a day later, my daughter died. On the night I was sending pictures to the funeral home, 2 more Hanceville officers came to my residence to arrest me again. They came to arrest me for bond forfeiture because I didn't show up on that court hearing. My attorneys were both there. They represented me. I paid them well. I'm making these arrangements and getting ready to be taken to jail. My daughter was being buried the very next day. Fortunately, I know Kenneth now, And I wasn't in any shape to call him, but my son Kevin called and he said, look, my daddy, we just lost my sister. You know, he's a good man. Anybody knows him. He said, they just leave him alone? Never told me what the warrant was for, by the way. Kenneth told him, or I don't know if it was Kenneth or who it was, someone later told me, the chief told him to just go on and let me turn myself in. Okay, I called my attorneys and told them what happened. I still don't know what the warrant's for. I didn't know it was bond forfeiture. I go on to the cemetery and I buried my daughter. On that day that I buried my daughter, I went to Hanceville, down here to this courtroom, and that judge, who was a joke, that sat right there, read me the riot act and told me, had me handcuffed immediately, and told me he's going to put me under the jail. You were remodeling, so I sat handcuffed out here in the hall for another 3 or 4 hours. During that time, I was told I was being arrested for bond forfeiture. I said, what bond? They said, well, you didn't appear for the discovery. No argument from my part would be heard, because I'm just an average citizen, like all these people here, an innocent average citizen. I was transported to county. I sat in county the night of my... The night of my daughter, she was buried, sat in county, and was going to be put in jail under no bond, 0, because I forfeited my bond, allegedly. My son knows the sheriff real well and the chief deputy. He called and he said, look, I don't know what's going on. And you know, I'm not going to say my dad's innocent or guilty, but we just buried my sister. And they told me to disrobe, go take a shower, put me in the rubber shoes. We're getting ready to put me in the orange jumpsuit. And the desk deputy said, Mr. Campbell, today's your lucky day. And I'm thinking, you just don't know. It's 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I said, well, tell me. He said, you've been released, R-O-R. I think that's released on your own recognizance. And I was released. We come back in front of this same judge. It continues almost for an entire year at more financial expense. And I'll conclude what I have to say by your police, untrained, uninformed, and you, like the lady before me said, you're the accountable ones. I was a manager of a major retail company, top level, and the buck stopped at me. The decisions to make these people in the roles they're in fall on each of you. And I ask again, have any of you ever looked inside that jail? And if it's changed, I'm shocked. But anyways, what I have to say don't amount to much, but I got my day and I could say my piece. My son said, well, at least 100 people said, you ought to sue him. Well, in the first place, I'm not the kind of man that sues anybody. I've never done anybody wrong in my entire life. I'm a Christian and I believe in treating people Christ-like. Amen. Okay? And I didn't want a pound of flesh, but I never got so much as I'm sorry this happened to you. And Mr. Sawyer, I've known you a long time. Another incident happened, and I had you come to my residence. At that time, you brought the new chief with you on this other issue. I told you a little bit about this story. Your exact words to me in the conversation, what do you expect me to do? And my response was, so help me. You got a Bible? I swear on it. I said, what I want you to do is clean up this town. Clean up this mess. I said, the people of this town deserve it. I'm just one individual. And nobody really cares what I have to say. Imagine if it happened to you, losing your child and your wife, and then being drugged through this crap, and then financial expense on top of that. You know what your response was to me? Do you remember, Jimmy? I don't remember exactly the way. Well, if I'm dying, if I'm lying, I'm dying. You looked at me and said, that's why this man right here is the new chief. He is going to clean it up. Shit. He cleaned it up, all right. Yeah, he did. And I would have never said another word about this. In fact, my son said, Daddy, don't sue him. You've been through too much. It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you more hurt. I could barely walk as it is from the injury to my back from that officer. And I agreed with him after praying a lot on it. But when I saw this nonsense, I said, maybe my story's not good, and maybe they'll put me off as a fool like some other people that have stories. But I swear to God, every word I told you is the truth. One thing I left out, at that time you had 8 police officers, because the chief told me himself, you had 8. That day while I was sitting in that squad car in my driveway, and there's a man in this room that can testify to the fact who's my neighbor, 5 squad cars showed up, 7 of your 8 officers, and you would have thought I was a murderer or a drug dealer. Fact. Then one of them told my neighbor in this room, who I don't know if he's going to speak or not, but that night before I buried my daughter, or the funeral, when they came with that warrant and they left, my good neighbor came over to check on me, see if I was okay. When he was walking through my yard, and if I'm misquoting you, sir, you know who you are? He said, one of them officers stopped me, or I asked him what's going on. He said, Hanceville Police, we're not through with Mr. Campbell yet. Is that professionalism? I say no. So I conclude my remarks. I love this town. I wouldn't have brought my family here and lived all this time if I didn't. And some of you lived here longer than I have. This got to have an input to it. If it don't, it's just a continuation of the same thing. And it's happened too many times in my lifetime. And it got worse in the last 3 years. Anyways, I conclude my remarks. I appreciate your time. I hope this sinks in. Yes, I'm mad and angry and upset. Put yourself in my position. How would you feel? The one that beat me up so bad, they let go immediately. I've still got the paperwork at my home. The other officer was a good officer. I will not deny it. He was a wonderful police officer. And he may be one of the ones they kept. But he was professional. Right down along. I got it at home. I don't know. But I'd be glad to give it to the press or anyone else that wants to know. Very good.
Alrighty. So, I would sue. Sorry. I'm suing everybody. That's the complete dumpster fire of the Hanceville Police Department. So, this is the degenerates.
Now at 6, we continue to follow developments from Hanceville, where the entire police department is now on leave.
The mayor of Hanceville making that announcement just after 4. That move went into effect at 5 o'clock. News 19's Nikki Marker has been following the story all day for us. She joins us live now from Hanceville.
Now, Nikki, what does this mean for law enforcement services there in Hanceville?
Ben, Tamika, all calls made in the Hanceville police jurisdiction will now be directed straight to the Coleman County Sheriff's Office. I spent the day in Hanceville today talking to some who live here and the prosecutor who brought the charges. 5 Hanceville police officers, including the police chief and a spouse of an officer, were arrested on Wednesday. The charges come after an investigation into the death of Christopher Willingham, a dispatcher who overdosed in his office in August of 2024. Wednesday seemed filled with revelations about the police department, but it wasn't news to Hanceville native Haley Thrasher.
Everybody agrees and nobody's really surprised, unfortunately.
She's a cashier at the Exxon gas station right down the road from the police department.
All day everybody's asked us what we thought about it, if we've heard anything, and it's just been about the same.
She says many of her customers agree with the grand jury's recommendation on the case that the Hanceville Police Department be abolished. The latest update in the case came Thursday afternoon when the city of Hanceville announced they are placing all employees of the Hanceville Police Department on administrative leave. The Coleman County District Attorney said police officers are vital, but
law enforcement is held to a high standard, and it's disturbing when you see officers not living up to that standard.
All calls in the Hanceville jurisdiction will now be directed straight to the Coleman County Sheriff's Office. In a case like this, Coleman County District Attorney Champ Crocker says it's inevitable for a community to lose trust in their law enforcement.
These allegations bother me as district attorney. They bother me as a citizen of Coleman County.
He says that's why they're committed to bringing justice and earning back the trust of the public.
So I hope that whatever comes from this, that those standards can be raised back up to where they're supposed to be.
The fate of the police department will be addressed at the Hanceville City Council meeting, and that is going to be a week from today, February 27th at 5 p.m. And News 19 has also obtained the indictments filed in the officers on these cases. You can expect those on our website later tonight, WHNT.com. I'm reporting live in Hanceville. Nikki Marker, News 19.
All right, thank you, Nikki. And then
Imagine for a city of just under 3,500 people, word travels fast. So what do residents in Hanceville think about these arrests, and did they see it coming? WAFF 48's Nick Ballinger continues our team coverage.
Shocked, surprised, amazed. I heard all three all day from residents here in Hanceville after 5 of the city's police officers were arrested. But I even heard a few expected, saw it coming, and bound to happen. For a city the size of Hanceville in Coleman County, word typically travels fast. At least that's the case after the arrest of 5 Hanceville police officers.
It's probably embarrassing for a lot of people thinking, hey, this is our town, this is our community.
they all like a bunch of criminals. Sorry.
Lifelong Hanceville resident Josh McHugh heard the news from a friend.
Makes me a little bit more worried about getting pulled over.
One woman has known one of the officers, Jason Wilbanks, her whole life.
This can't be true. This is, I've known this kid for forever. He's always been a really good kid. I don't know if he just got mixed in with someone he shouldn't have been mixed in with.
But Eric Maldonado doesn't share that same shock. He works at a gas station where he sees Hanceville police officers pull people over daily.
It's a constant. I mean, we laugh about it because it's every day. Like some of their cops will be like just some massive power tripping dudes. I mean, there's some good cops in there.
The grand jury found the entire Hanceville Police Department should...
Well, the good cops we keep hearing about are not stopping the bad cops, so by default, they are not good cops.
...should be abolished.
I mean, our sheriff's office patrols all these other small towns in the county of Coleman. I don't see why they couldn't do it down here.
With 5 officers arrested, McHugh says Hanceville's only down to a couple officers left.
Half of the force quit. I don't know why. I guess I can kind of see why.
He says a few quit back in December of 2023 when the former mayor pleaded guilty to 15 misdemeanor counts of using his office for personal gain. 4 months later, the former police chief retired, leaving Jason Marlin as the chief in August of 2024.
I mean, he's been in and out of our store. Seemed like a good stand-up guy. A lot of the officers there as well seem like pretty stand-up people. But, everything comes to light at some point.
Some here in Hanceville are still waiting for more information to come out regarding these arrests before they make any assumptions. Stick with WAFF 48 to bring you the latest. In Hanceville, Nick Ballinger, 48 News, on your side.
Thank you, Nick. And then we had this. Fate of Hanceville Police Department tabled as residents express frustrations. Alrighty, 27th. We're moving right along. 19th, 19th, 21, 23, 25, 20, we're moving right along.
Standing room only inside Hanceville City Hall as more than 36 residents gathered for the first special called meeting since the arrest of 4 city officers, including the Hanceville police chief, and a grand jury recommendation that the entire department be abolished.
You need to meet your responsibility and take care of the citizens of Hanceville. Because right now, if you Google Hanceville, the only thing that comes up is this mess.
For some like Brian Campbell, this meeting was an opportunity to address the council about allegations of police misconduct.
That was all perpetrated by a 911 call where the person hung up. When I got to the jail, my abuse continued. Maybe it's procedure, I don't know. I was handcuffed to a bench right out there.
But now, with the majority of the department facing felony charges, what happens next, and what are the city's options?
What will the response times be? How long will I have to wait for someone to come and help me? What will happen if there is no police department?
Some believe keeping the Coleman County Sheriff's Office in charge of Hanceville's law enforcement is the best choice.
We should take the grand jury's recommendation. I think it would be more cost effective to have Coleman County take over the police function here.
But the overwhelming majority, including members of the council and other city employees, say they want a local police department.
Maybe we seek his assistance for somebody in the Coleman County Sheriff's Office right now to recommend somebody to be our interim police chief. Let's not get rid of all of it, get rid of the dirt, get rid of the fraud.
We love the citizens of this city. We do not want to see your police department fall, which is why 12 of us have chosen to stay and remain loyal to you.
I caught up with Councilwoman Patty Dean as she walked out of the council chambers.
Will Hanceville have a police department in 2 months?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's just something we've all got to get together and sit down and figure out. And it's going to take time because we've got to do it right.
The next meeting is set for March 10th at 5 p.m. at the Hanceville Civic Center. That was Gladys Bautista reporting.
Alrighty. I'm not sure why that's not stopping, but I thought it was another one on that one. Was it this one? Anyway. And we are here. Oh, it's this one. Future of Hanceville PD remains uncertain. City councilors vote to table discussions. Alrighty.
More breaking news tonight. The city of Hanceville deciding to
And this is the latest.
delay taking action on its embattled police department.
The city held its first council meeting since the arrest of 5 officers prompted calls for the police department to be dissolved. Your reporter Josh Gant live in Hanceville tonight with more from that packed house. Josh?
Yeah, Steve, Brittany, standing room only here at Hanceville City Hall. The city didn't take any action on this department, only tabling the issue until they say they can get a handle on what's been going on and how to move forward with their police department. This room, the meeting filled with a lot of emotion as people giving city council an earful on how they feel about the police department and its future. Let's take you to some of that video here. Majority of residents want the city to keep the police department and reform it from the inside out. There were a few people who want the city to get rid of the department altogether. Now, just a short time ago, we heard from people sharing experiences with the department, some saying they were allegedly harassed or even attacked or injured by officers over the years. Others say, look, there is no room for corruption here. They want City Hall to make much needed change to Hanceville PD and overhaul this department.
Take time to sit back and revamp and see what everything is that's going on. Get us a new chief, get the officers. We have good employees here still in the city of Hanceville.
I think it would be more cost effective to have Coleman County take over the police function here and also the jail. I think it would just be a load off of your hands.
I recommend that we keep our police department. Let's keep the revenue in this town. Let's have paying jobs in this town. Let's not
Keep the revenue in this town, because police departments generate a bunch of revenue. A lot of these people that are talking are government.
give it to Coleman.
Right now, the sheriff's office running calls here in the city of Hanceville. City council did vote, though, to have another big public meeting on March 10th about the police department's future. Coming up at 10 o'clock, I'll have reaction from a city councilor who says, look, the city really needs to take its time about the decision here. We'll also share with you about some of the issues that she has with that grand jury's report. Much more on that when we see you at 10 o'clock. Your reporter live in Hanceville tonight. I'm Josh Scant, WBRC 6 News on your side.
Thank you, Josh. Stop.
I love the house. I actually like it, and I think it's wonderful.
Tatiana Williams with a reason to smile today. She and her family were gifted a new home weeks after losing her 2 children to hypothermia. She and her family. Tatiana Williams with a reason to smile today.
Why is it not stopping?
I love the house. I actually like it, and I think it's wonderful.
Tatiana Williams with a reason to smile today. She and her family were gifted.
It's always got to be something.
After losing her 2 children with the city.
Burn the shit. Stop.
By offer.
I'm kind of happy me here.
Okay, now stop.
Businesses perform better when they put people first. Cintas helps you take care of your
Right
employees.
at the end, it's got to be something. Anyway, there's the criminal organization. It's ridiculous. And is there anything to this one?
Future of its police department after the arrest of 5 police officers last week, including the chief pictured here, and calls by the grand jury for the department to dissolve, saying they're more of a danger than a help. Your breaking news reporter.
The grand jury says that this criminal organization that they call themselves law enforcement is more harm than good to the community. And there's people there, most of those were government, saying we need to keep them. No, they need to burn it down and start somewhere else.
Taylor Pollock live from Hanceville with what we've heard in hour number 1 of a heated meeting there. Taylor.
Absolutely, Jonathan. That room is packed with people anxious to know the fate of the Hanceville Police Department, and they are still in the public comment section of that meeting. We've heard from a mix of people, both for and against dissolving the department. Others have been sharing stories of their experiences with the department. They say that they have been harassed or even attacked or injured by some of these officers. Others are saying that there's corruption not only within the police department, but within Hanceville City Hall. Others want to see the department sell.
That's why they want to keep the police department. They don't want all the shit. No, they need to. We need a whole. We need to know everything going on in there.
Salvage, but say that there needs to be a massive overhaul.
I know some very good cops that work here, but given the actions of a few, this trust was destroyed. I think by holding these people accountable and basically admitting, all right, you know what, this was a mistake. We need to find people who will serve with honor, not entitlement.
And we do have team coverage of this meeting for you tonight. Your reporter Josh Gant inside of that meeting. As we speak, we'll bring you coverage throughout our shows tonight as well as on the WBRC News app. Your breaking news reporter in Hanceville, Taylor Pollock, WBRC 6 News on your side.
Thank you, Taylor. Also, March 10th at 5 p.m., we'll be checking in and see what is going on with that and see where they go from here. Anyway, let me just think about this complete shit show in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Also, again, 90% of people that watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. All you gotta do is just click the button and I will quit harassing you. And let me know what you're thinking. I'm out.